What if a 10-year-old genius could outsmart one of the world's richest men? Imagine a world where a young girl, barely 10 years old, cracks a problem so complex it leaves tech billionaires stunned. What if this child's curiosity and creativity were powerful enough to challenge even Elon Musk, the visionary behind SpaceX and Tesla? This story begins with that very question, the unlikely journey of Emma Harper, a girl from a small town in Ohio, who would soon shake the foundations of the tech world. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when Emma received an envelope unlike any she had ever seen. The crisp paper bore the unmistakable logo of SpaceX, accompanied by a handwritten note, "To Emma Harper, your curiosity has caught our eye. We invite you to compete in the Future Innovators Challenge." Emma stared at the letter in disbelief, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. She had always been fascinated by rockets and robots, but this was something else entirely. A chance to stand among geniuses, to prove that age was no barrier to brilliance. But could she really compete against kids who had grown up in Silicon Valley, surrounded by the latest technology and endless resources? Doubts crept in, but so did a fierce determination. Emma's mother, Rachel, a hardworking mechanic who had raised her alone, smiled warmly when Emma showed her the letter. "You're going to show them what real grit looks like, kiddo," she said, wiping grease off her hands with a rag before pulling Emma in for a hug. Emma nodded, clutching the letter tightly, trying to steady the trembling in her fingers. "I have to try," she whispered. Her room, cluttered with model rockets, circuit boards, and science books, suddenly felt like the launching pad for something much bigger than herself. She imagined herself in a lab filled with blinking lights and whirring machines, working side by side with the brightest minds. But the reality was that she was just a kid from a small town where people often settled for ordinary lives and safe choices. Emma had never seen a rocket launch in person, only videos and documentaries she watched late at night on her old laptop. Still, she dreamed bigger than most adults around her. Her father had been the source of that dream, a brilliant engineer who had vanished years ago, leaving behind a trail of blueprints and unanswered questions. Emma kept a photo of him on her desk, his kind eyes seeming to encourage her every day. The invitation was more than just a competition, it was a chance to rewrite her story and maybe, just maybe, uncover a piece of her father's legacy. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma pored over her notes and sketches, building models out of spare parts she found in her mother's garage. Her best friend, Max, a boy with a knack for coding and a quick smile, offered to help. "You're gonna knock their socks off," he said, grinning as he soldered tiny wires together. Emma smiled back, grateful for his friendship. "Thanks, Max. I just hope I'm ready." They stayed up late, talking about rockets, AI, and the future, fueled by pizza and determination. Meanwhile, word spread around town about the small-town girl getting a chance to compete at SpaceX. Some neighbors were proud, others skeptical. "That girl's got guts," said Mrs. Daniels from next door, nodding approvingly. But others whispered, "She doesn't stand a chance against the big city kids." Emma heard the doubts but buried them deep inside. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every kid who had ever been told their dreams were too big. On the morning of her departure, Rachel packed her a small bag, slipping in a worn baseball cap and a note that said, "Believe in yourself like I believe in you." Emma hugged her mother tightly, feeling a mix of excitement and fear twist in her stomach. The drive to the airport was quiet but filled with unspoken hopes. As Emma looked out the window, she thought about the challenges ahead. What would it be like to face the brightest young minds in the world? Could she really stand toe-to-toe with children who had resources she couldn't imagine? What if she failed? But beneath the fear was a spark of hope, a quiet voice telling her she belonged here. When Emma arrived at the SpaceX campus, she was overwhelmed by the scale and sleekness of the place. The buildings gleamed in the California sun, and the air buzzed with excitement and tension. She felt like an ant among giants but reminded herself of the letter's promise, that her curiosity had caught their eye for a reason. At registration, she met other competitors, kids from across the country, some with names she recognized from tech news, others new faces brimming with confidence. Many gave her curious looks, sizing up that small-town kid. One boy, dressed in a designer hoodie, smirked and said, "Hope you're ready to lose." Emma swallowed the lump in her throat but met his gaze steadily. "I'm here to learn," she said quietly. The first day of the competition was a blur of tests and challenges, puzzles that tested logic and creativity, building tasks that required quick thinking and teamwork. Emma struggled at first, feeling outmatched by the advanced tools and polished presentations of others. But she never gave up. She watched closely, learning from every mistake, absorbing every tip from mentors who saw her potential. When Elon Musk himself appeared for a surprise visit, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Emma's heart raced. She caught a glimpse of him, intense eyes, a quick smile, a man who seemed to carry the weight of the future on his shoulders. She wondered what he thought of her, a 10-year-old with big dreams. The day ended with a team challenge: build a device that could simulate landing a spacecraft on Mars. Emma's team struggled, but her ideas helped turn the project around. Though they didn't win the challenge, she earned respect for her creative thinking and calm under pressure. Back in her dorm room that night, Emma lay awake, the weight of the day settling on her chest. Doubts whispered, was she really good enough? Could she keep up with these kids? But then she thought of her mother's note and her father's photo on the desk. She thought of Max, cheering her on from Ohio, and the small-town voices rooting for her. And she made a promise: she would fight for every inch of ground. Because sometimes, the biggest obstacles were just opportunities to shine brighter. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was hope, hope that no matter where you come from, your ideas matter, and your courage can change the world. And so the race was on, a race not just to win, but to prove that brilliance comes in many forms, sometimes wrapped in the curious mind of a 10-year-old girl from Ohio. What happened next? Stay tuned. The journey has only just begun. The girl behind the genius Emma Harper wasn't born into wealth or privilege. In fact, her world was small, shaped by the quiet streets of Millfield, Ohio, where everybody knew each other and dreams usually stayed just that, dreams. But Emma's mind was a whirlwind of questions and ideas, a place where rockets soared and machines hummed with possibility. From the time she could walk, she took apart every gadget she could find: toasters, old radios, even her mother's tools, trying to understand how they worked. Her mother, Rachel, was a mechanic at the local garage, a tough, no-nonsense woman who worked hard to provide for Emma after her father disappeared years ago. Emma's father, David Harper, had been an engineer working on aerospace projects, and his sudden absence left a hole in Emma's life and a mountain of unanswered questions. Every night, Emma would stare at his old blueprints spread out on her desk, trying to connect the dots, hoping one day she might finish what he started. Growing up without a father was hard. Sometimes Emma felt like an outsider at school, the rocket girl, teased for being too curious or too different. But she had Max, her best friend since kindergarten, who never laughed at her inventions or wild ideas. Max was the yin to Emma's yang, where she was intense and driven, he was easygoing and funny. They spent hours together in Emma's garage-turned-lab, scribbling equations on dusty windows and testing makeshift rockets made from soda bottles and duct tape. Emma's relationship with her mother was the anchor in her life. Rachel wasn't just a mechanic, she was a role model who showed Emma how to be strong when life got tough. Rachel often told Emma, "Brains will get you far, but heart will keep you going." Emma carried those words with her like a shield. She remembered the long nights when Rachel worked double shifts, coming home exhausted but always ready to listen to Emma's latest ideas or comfort her when the doubts crept in. School wasn't always easy. Emma was often bored in class, her mind wandering to distant stars and equations instead of spelling tests. Teachers didn't always understand her, and other kids sometimes called her a weirdo. But Emma never let their words stop her. Instead, she focused on the one thing that fueled her, her desire to create something that mattered, something that could change the world. One of her favorite memories was the science fair last year, when she built a small drone that could fly indoors and navigate obstacles using sensors she designed herself. Most kids brought simple volcanoes or posters, but Emma's project was different. She worked on it for weeks, late into the night, soldering wires and programming the tiny computer chip. When the judges came around, their eyes lit up. She didn't win first place, but the experience taught her that hard work and passion could make people notice. That moment stuck with her, a reminder that being different could be a strength. Emma also struggled with loneliness. Without her father around, she often felt like there was a missing piece in her life. She would sometimes sneak into her dad's old workshop, now dusty and unused, and run her fingers over the cold metal tools. She didn't know what happened to him, only that he left behind unfinished dreams and a daughter determined to carry them forward. The mystery of her father's disappearance was a silent thread woven through Emma's childhood, fueling her need to prove herself and to find answers. Despite the hardships, Emma's spirit was unbreakable. Her mind was a constant hum of ideas, questions, and plans. She devoured books on physics, engineering, and space exploration, often teaching herself things her teachers hadn't yet covered. Max joked that Emma was part Einstein, part rocket fuel, and in many ways, he was right. Emma's days were a balancing act between school, helping her mother at the garage, and chasing her inventions. She learned to manage her time like a pro, often waking up before dawn to tinker on projects. Her determination impressed Rachel, who sometimes worried about how much Emma pushed herself. "Don't forget to breathe," she'd say gently. But Emma knew that to reach for the stars, she had to be willing to sacrifice comfort and face fear head-on. The invitation to the SpaceX Future Innovators Challenge was a turning point. It was the first time Emma felt like her hard work might pay off on a much bigger stage. But with excitement came fear, the fear of failure, of being outmatched by kids with better resources, better schools, and bigger networks. She confided in Max one evening as they sat under the stars, sipping soda and staring up at the sky. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I mess up in front of everyone?" Max shrugged, his grin steady. "Then you mess up. Big deal. You'll learn, and you'll keep going. Besides, who else can say they took on Elon Musk?" His words lifted a weight off Emma's chest. She realized that courage wasn't about never being afraid, it was about moving forward despite fear. Emma's mother had one rule: no matter what happened, Emma had to be true to herself. "Don't let anyone else's expectations drown out your voice," Rachel said. Emma carried those words into the competition. Her backstory. The absent father, the single mom, the small-town girl with big dreams, wasn't just background noise, it was the fuel that powered her. It shaped how she approached every challenge, every setback. She wasn't just competing to win, she was competing to prove that brilliance and courage could come from anywhere. As the days passed and the competition loomed closer, Emma's resolve grew. She knew the road ahead would be tough, filled with rivals who doubted her, challenges that tested her limits, and moments when she might want to give up. But beneath it all was a quiet fire, a belief that no matter the odds, she could make a difference. Emma Harper was ready to take on the world. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the love of her family, the friendship of Max, and the memory of a father who once dreamed of reaching the stars. Together, they gave her the strength to step into the unknown and face whatever came next. When dreams meet reality, the excitement of arriving at SpaceX and meeting other brilliant kids soon gave way to a harder truth: competition was fierce, and Emma quickly realized this challenge was more than she had imagined. The Future Innovators Challenge wasn't just a test of knowledge, it was a high-stakes battlefield where every idea, every move, could make or break a chance at victory. On the second day of the competition, Emma faced her first major test: a coding challenge that required participants to program a drone to navigate a complex obstacle course. Many kids pulled out sleek laptops and preloaded software, while Emma sat with her modest, hand-me-down laptop, fingers trembling slightly as she typed lines of code she'd written herself late into the night. The room buzzed with whispered conversations and nervous energy. Emma felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, especially from a group of kids who had already marked her as an outsider. The leader of that group, a boy named Carter, was quick to make his disdain clear. "Cute," he muttered when he saw Emma's setup. "You really think you can keep up with this?" Carter's sneer was sharp, his words designed to intimidate. Emma's cheeks flushed, but she squared her shoulders. "I'm not here to keep up. I'm here to win." Carter laughed, but there was something in Emma's voice. A mix of determination and quiet confidence, that gave him pause. The challenge began, and the room fell into tense silence. Emma's drone wobbled at first, struggling to avoid the twisting poles and moving barriers, but she adjusted her code on the fly, her fingers flying over the keys. The obstacles seemed impossible, yet Emma's mind worked like a well-oiled machine, breaking the problem into smaller parts, solving each step methodically. When her drone finally completed the course, not the fastest, but the only one to finish without crashing, a ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. Even Carter looked impressed, though he masked it quickly. "Beginner's luck," he muttered under his breath. But Emma knew better. She had earned every bit of her progress through grit and quick thinking. That night, Emma lay awake replaying the day's events. The challenge had shown her the gap she had to close but also the power of staying calm under pressure. The next morning, things took a harder turn. The judges announced a group project. Teams had to design a prototype for a sustainable energy source that could power a Mars colony. Emma was placed in a team with Carter and two other kids, both confident and competitive. Tensions flared immediately. Carter dominated the conversation, dismissing Emma's ideas without a second thought. "We need practical solutions, not fantasy," he snapped when Emma suggested using algae biofuel. The others nodded along, leaving Emma feeling sidelined and frustrated. But she refused to give up. "What if we combine different energy sources?" she suggested, her voice steady despite the chill in the room. "We could use solar panels along with biofuel to create a hybrid system that's more reliable." The team paused, considering the idea. Slowly, the mood shifted. Emma's proposal sparked new discussions and collaboration, and together they sketched out a plan that impressed the judges. Yet the experience left Emma torn, caught between wanting to prove herself and navigating the harsh realities of competition and egos. As the days passed, Emma faced more moments like this, times when her ideas were overlooked, when others doubted her because of her age or background. She heard whispers and snide comments, felt the sting of exclusion. But she also found allies, mentors who encouraged her, and a few competitors who admired her courage. Max called every night, reminding her to stay focused and believe in herself. "You're not alone, Emma," he said. "You've got this." The emotional roller coaster of hope and challenge tested Emma's resilience. There were moments when she doubted herself, when the pressure seemed too much. But she remembered her mother's words, "Heart will keep you going," and clung to them. The tipping point came during a presentation day. Emma's team was tasked with pitching their Mars energy solution to a panel of experts, including Elon Musk himself. The room was filled with tension. Carter took the lead, speaking confidently but glossing over key details. When Emma was given a chance to speak, she used it to explain the technical aspects and answer tough questions with clarity and passion. Elon Musk listened intently, nodding at her points. After the presentation, Musk approached Emma. "You have a sharp mind and a clear vision," he said quietly. "Keep pushing. The world needs thinkers like you." Those words sparked a new fire in Emma. She realized this competition was more than just winning, it was about learning, growing, and proving that even a 10-year-old could make a difference in a world dominated by giants. The rising conflict wasn't just between Emma and her competitors, it was a battle inside herself. To overcome doubt, to fight for her voice, and to stay true to her dreams. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the stubborn belief that no matter the obstacles, brilliance and courage could shine through. As the challenge intensified, Emma prepared for what was next, a journey that would test her in ways she never expected, pushing her to the edge of her abilities and beyond. A leap into the unknown. Emma's world shifted dramatically when she received an unexpected invitation to join an elite group within the Future Innovators Challenge, a secret project rumored to be overseen personally by Elon Musk. It was no longer just about solving puzzles or impressing judges, this was a chance to work on a real prototype that could change the future of space exploration. The announcement came on a crisp morning. Emma was called into a sleek conference room, the walls lined with digital screens displaying spacecraft designs and mission data. Musk himself was there, leaning against a table, his gaze intense but encouraging. "This project will push you beyond anything you've done so far," he said. "You'll be working with a team to design a new type of autonomous rover capable of navigating Mars' toughest terrains." Emma's heart raced. This was the moment she had dreamed of. The chance to step from the sidelines into the spotlight, to prove her ideas weren't just theoretical but practical and revolutionary. But it was also terrifying. The other team members were older, some college-aged prodigies with experience Emma only dreamed of. Their conversations were filled with jargon and concepts she hadn't fully mastered. The first team meeting was a whirlwind of introductions, debates, and brainstorming sessions. Emma felt out of place at first, struggling to keep up with the rapid-fire exchanges and complex calculations. But she listened closely, took notes, and when she spoke, her ideas were met with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. The project demanded creativity and precision. The rover needed to handle unpredictable terrain, extreme temperatures, and limited communication with Earth. Emma threw herself into research, studying Mars geography, robotic sensors, and artificial intelligence algorithms. Late nights in the lab were punctuated by moments of frustration, circuits that didn't work, code that crashed, prototypes that failed, but also bursts of inspiration when pieces clicked together. One night, as Emma stared at the rover's blueprint, she realized that the key to solving their biggest challenge, autonomous navigation, was to mimic how animals explore unknown environments. She proposed integrating a sensory system modeled after bats' echolocation, using sound waves to map obstacles in real time. The idea was met with raised eyebrows, but the team agreed to test it. The initial trials were rough, the sensors misfired and the rover stalled in the simulated Martian landscape. Emma stayed up, tweaking the design, adjusting the algorithms, and encouraging her teammates to keep pushing. Slowly, the rover began to move more fluidly, sensing obstacles before hitting them and adjusting its path autonomously. The breakthrough brought a surge of excitement and renewed energy to the team. But just as progress seemed steady, a crisis hit. A key component malfunctioned days before the final presentation, threatening to derail the entire project. The team was overwhelmed, exhausted, and on edge. Musk called a meeting to address the setback, his usually calm demeanor replaced by urgency. "We have to find a solution, and fast. This rover needs to work flawlessly if it's going to survive Mars." Emma felt the pressure tighten around her like a vice. She remembered her mother's words about heart and grit, and despite the fear, she spoke up. "What if we redesign the system to use redundancy, multiple smaller sensors instead of one big one? That way, if one fails, the others can compensate." The team was hesitant but willing to try. Working through the night, Emma and the engineers reconfigured the rover's sensory array, testing different combinations and calibrating the software. The tension in the room was palpable, but so was the determination. When the rover was finally tested again, it performed flawlessly, navigating the course with precision and grace. The team erupted in cheers, exhausted but victorious. The journey had been a roller coaster, from doubt and struggle to breakthrough and triumph. Emma realized this wasn't just about building a rover, it was about discovering the power of collaboration, resilience, and believing in one's own ideas even when others doubt you. The climactic journey had transformed her from a curious kid into a true innovator, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the thrill of discovery and the unshakable belief that every problem had a solution waiting to be found. As the project moved toward its final phase, Emma braced herself for the moment that would define not just the competition, but her future, a moment that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and the world. The truth revealed the day of the final presentation arrived with a mixture of excitement and dread hanging thick in the air. Emma Harper, the 10-year-old girl from a small town in Ohio, stood nervously alongside her team in the vast SpaceX auditorium. Around her were competitors from elite schools, investors, engineers, and, most intimidatingly, Elon Musk himself. The rover, a marvel born of sleepless nights, endless calculations, and sheer determination, sat on the stage, gleaming under the bright lights. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she prepared to speak. But this moment was bigger than nerves, it was a culmination of everything she had been through, the absence of her father, the sacrifices of her mother, the whispers of doubt, and the hope that fueled her every step. As the presentation began, the team showcased their rover's capabilities, walking the audience through the design, the challenges they overcame, and the innovations they brought to the table. When it was Emma's turn to explain the sensory system inspired by bat echolocation, she spoke clearly and passionately, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. The demonstration started, and the rover smoothly navigated a simulated Martian landscape, avoiding obstacles with a grace that seemed almost alive. The room was silent, captivated by the technology, and by Emma's story. After the presentation, Elon Musk approached Emma privately. His usual stern expression softened as he said, "You have something rare, Emma. Not just talent, but the grit to keep going when it counts. But I want to ask you something personal, why do you push so hard?" Emma hesitated, then looked into his eyes. "Because I want to finish what my dad started. He was working on space tech before he disappeared. I want to make him proud." Musk nodded thoughtfully. "That's powerful. Keep that fire alive." Just then, the unexpected happened. A senior engineer stepped forward with a confidential file, documents from a secret project Emma's father had been involved with years ago at SpaceX. The room fell silent as Emma opened the file. Inside were blueprints and notes, the exact foundation of the rover they had built, with key innovations that her team had unknowingly replicated and expanded upon. A surge of emotions crashed over Emma, shock, confusion, hope, and a deep ache. Her father hadn't just disappeared, he had been part of something monumental, a hidden chapter in space exploration history. The revelation rocked the audience and changed everything. Emma realized that her connection to the project was more than coincidence, it was destiny. The emotional climax wasn't just about winning, it was about uncovering a legacy intertwined with her own journey. Tears welled up as she whispered, "I wasn't just building a rover. I was finishing my dad's dream." The crowd was moved, and even the toughest competitors showed respect. Elon Musk placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "You're part of a bigger story now, Emma. One that's just beginning." This moment of truth lifted Emma in ways she never expected. It was a shock, but also a powerful hope, a reminder that family, love, and determination could light the darkest paths. As she stood on that stage, heart pounding with a mix of pride and vulnerability, Emma understood the greatest lesson of all, that our past shapes us, but it doesn't define us. What matters is what we do with the future. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the truth of her father's legacy, a beacon guiding her toward a future filled with endless possibilities. As the applause swelled and the lights dimmed, Emma felt a quiet strength settle within her. The emotional climax had passed, but the journey was far from over. What came next would test her heart, her mind, and her soul in ways she never imagined. Would she rise to the challenge or let fear hold her back? Only time would tell. Emma stepped off the stage, her heart still pounding from the whirlwind of the final presentation and the revelation about her father. The applause and cheers echoed in her ears, but inside, a calm determination began to settle. She had crossed a threshold, from being a curious kid with a dream to becoming a young innovator carrying a legacy, and more importantly, creating her own path. Back in the quiet of her hotel room, Emma stared at the blueprints again, the old pages now infused with new meaning. Her father's handwriting seemed alive, as if reaching out through time to guide her. The missing pieces she had been chasing for years suddenly felt within reach, not as shadows of loss but as sparks for the future. That night, she called her mother, Rachel, whose voice was warm and steady through the phone. "Mom," Emma said softly, "I think I'm finally starting to understand why Dad left those notes behind. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about hope." Rachel smiled, her pride clear even over the distance. "He believed in you, Emma. And so do I." Over the next weeks, the competition's results were announced. Emma's team had won top honors, praised not only for their technical achievement but for the heart and creativity they brought to the project. Invitations poured in, from universities, research labs, and tech companies, all eager to support the young prodigy who had outsmarted expectations and, yes, even Elon Musk. But Emma's thoughts were bigger than awards or fame. She wanted to make sure that what she built would matter, that it could truly help humanity reach for the stars. With new mentors and resources at her side, Emma began working on refining the rover, integrating lessons learned and pushing boundaries even further. She also kept up with Max, whose unwavering support reminded her that no dream was too big when you had friends who believed in you. At school, things changed too. Emma was no longer that weird rocket girl, but someone people looked up to, a symbol of perseverance and brilliance. She used her new platform to encourage other kids, especially girls, to explore science and technology. Her message was simple but powerful: don't let anyone tell you who you are or what you can become. Reflecting on her journey, Emma understood that success wasn't just about talent or hard work, it was about resilience, kindness, and the courage to keep moving forward despite setbacks. She had faced doubts, exclusion, and fear, but each challenge taught her something vital about herself and the world. One afternoon, sitting with her mother in the garage where it all began, Emma realized how far they had come. The small town that once seemed limiting now felt like the solid ground from which she had launched. Rachel hugged her tightly, whispering, "You're more than I ever dreamed possible." Emma smiled, eyes bright with possibility. And this is just the beginning. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was love. The love of family, friendship, and the belief that the future belongs to those brave enough to dream. As Emma looked toward the horizon, she knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but now she had something stronger than fear or doubt, a purpose that would carry her through every twist and turn. Life was full of surprises, but love and courage would always lead the way. Emma's victory and newfound recognition opened doors she hadn't even dreamed of, but with new opportunities came new challenges that tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Returning to her everyday life after the high of the Future Innovators Challenge was bittersweet. While she was celebrated as a prodigy, the spotlight brought pressure, expectations, and a whirlwind of activity that threatened to overwhelm her. School felt different. Teachers praised her, classmates watched her with curiosity or envy, and some friends drifted away, unsure how to relate to someone suddenly so different. Emma missed the simplicity of her old routine but knew she had to embrace her new role, as a pioneer, a leader, and a symbol of what young minds could achieve. One morning, Emma received an unexpected email from a major tech company offering a summer internship program designed for young innovators under the age of 18. It was an incredible opportunity, but it came with a catch. The program was located on the West Coast, far from home, and required Emma to spend several months away from her family and Max. The decision weighed heavily on her. Leaving her mother, her small town, and the people who grounded her was daunting. But the chance to work alongside top engineers on cutting-edge technology, to learn, grow, and contribute in ways she never imagined, was irresistible. After long conversations with Rachel and Max, Emma decided to take the leap. She packed her bags with a mix of excitement and nerves, boarding a plane toward an unknown future. The internship was intense. Emma found herself immersed in a fast-paced environment where ideas flew at lightning speed, deadlines were tight, and every mistake felt magnified. The older interns and engineers were brilliant but sometimes dismissive, surprised that such a young girl was on their team. At times, Emma felt isolated, the youngest by far, struggling to keep up with jargon, technical discussions, and the sheer volume of work. But her determination never wavered. She approached every challenge as a puzzle to solve, a chance to prove that age was just a number. Slowly, Emma earned respect by asking thoughtful questions, offering fresh perspectives, and refusing to be intimidated. Her curiosity sparked new conversations, and her ability to connect different ideas led to innovations her teammates hadn't considered. One project focused on developing a compact power source for deep space probes, a critical technology that could revolutionize missions to distant planets. Emma proposed experimenting with a novel combination of materials she had researched late into the night. Skeptical at first, the lead engineer agreed to test her idea, and when the results showed promise, the team's attitude toward Emma shifted. She was no longer the kid intern, she was a valued contributor, an essential part of the team. But the journey wasn't without setbacks. Midway through the internship, a sudden budget cut threatened to cancel the project Emma had grown so passionate about. The news hit the team hard, and morale plummeted. Emma felt crushed. This project was more than work, it was a chance to make a real impact. Instead of giving up, she rallied the team, organizing brainstorming sessions and reaching out to mentors and supporters. Her enthusiasm reignited hope, and together they crafted a compelling proposal to secure alternative funding. Their efforts paid off, the project was saved, and the team's bond strengthened by the shared struggle. Outside the lab, Emma faced personal challenges too. Living away from home tested her independence and resilience. She learned to navigate a new city, manage her own schedule, and balance work with moments of rest and self-care. Loneliness crept in at times, but video calls with Rachel and Max, as well as new friendships formed in the program, provided support. Emma discovered the importance of asking for help and the strength that comes from vulnerability. As summer turned to fall, Emma's skills and confidence soared. Her innovative approach caught the attention of executives, and she was invited to speak at a company-wide event. Standing before hundreds of professionals, Emma shared her journey, from a small-town girl dreaming of space to a young innovator working on technologies that could change the world. Her message was clear: age, background, or circumstances should never limit one's potential. The crowd erupted in applause, and Emma felt a deep sense of belonging and purpose. Yet, amid the success, a quiet question lingered in her mind: what came next? The future was wide open but uncertain. Would she continue down this path? Could she balance the demands of innovation with the joys of childhood? Emma realized that growth meant embracing change, facing fears, and constantly redefining what was possible. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the courage to step into the unknown, to trust herself when the road ahead was unclear. As she packed her bags at the end of the internship, ready to return home, Emma knew that every challenge was a stepping stone, and that the journey was just beginning. Returning home after the intense internship, Emma expected a period of calm, a chance to catch her breath and reconnect with Max, her mother, and the small town that had been her foundation. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Just as Emma settled back into her routine, news spread about a new competitor in the world of young innovators, a prodigy named Jake Mason. Jake was a 12-year-old genius from California who had gained fame for inventing a groundbreaking energy-efficient engine and was quickly becoming the darling of tech media. Unlike Emma, whose rise had been steady and rooted in collaboration, Jake was known for his competitive streak and sharp wit, often engaging in public debates and challenging the ideas of others. The media quickly framed them as rivals, the girl who outsmarted Elon Musk versus the boy who could reinvent the future. The comparison sparked excitement and tension. At school, Emma felt the pressure mounting. Reporters requested interviews, and social media buzzed with speculation about a showdown between the two young geniuses. Emma wasn't sure how to feel. On one hand, she admired Jake's brilliance, on the other, the rivalry made her uneasy. She preferred cooperation to conflict. One afternoon, while preparing for a local science fair, Emma received a challenge from Jake himself, a head-to-head competition to create the most innovative solution to a pressing environmental problem. The challenge was public, and the prize was a mentorship opportunity with a leading scientist. Emma's heart raced. Accepting meant stepping fully into the spotlight, risking failure, and facing someone whose intellect matched hers. After talking with her mother and Max, Emma decided to embrace the challenge. She saw it as a chance not just to prove herself but to learn, grow, and maybe even find a new ally. The competition kicked off with both contestants diving into research, brainstorming, and building prototypes. Emma chose to focus on a sustainable water filtration system designed for communities facing drought and pollution. She drew from her experiences on the rover project, applying principles of efficiency and adaptability. Jake, meanwhile, worked on a compact device that could convert waste heat into usable energy. Their workspaces were a flurry of activity, punctuated by moments of frustration and bursts of inspiration. As the deadline approached, the media coverage intensified. Emma found herself grappling not only with technical challenges but with the weight of public expectation. The rivalry began to feel less like friendly competition and more like a test of her identity. Then came the turning point. During a science expo, Emma and Jake were unexpectedly paired to give a joint presentation about their projects. Forced to collaborate, they discovered a shared passion for innovation and a respect for each other's talents. Their conversations went beyond technical details, touching on dreams, fears, and the pressure of being labeled prodigies. Emma saw Jake's competitive nature soften, revealing a thoughtful, curious boy who, like her, just wanted to make a difference. Together, they proposed combining their inventions into an integrated system that could provide clean water and energy simultaneously, a solution greater than the sum of its parts. The collaboration was a revelation. Their joint project won top honors, and the mentorship opportunity was extended to both. More importantly, Emma learned that rivalry didn't have to mean opposition. It could spark growth, understanding, and unexpected friendship. Reflecting on the experience, Emma realized that true innovation came not from competition alone but from connection, the willingness to listen, share, and build together. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the courage to turn rivalry into partnership and to believe that together, we are stronger. As Emma and Jake stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges came next, the world watched, not just two young geniuses, but two hearts united by a common dream. Emma's newfound partnership with Jake Mason had stirred excitement across the innovation community, but behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. What began as a thrilling collaboration soon morphed into an exhausting struggle, testing Emma's limits like never before. After their joint success at the Science Expo, Emma and Jake received an invitation to join a prestigious national program aimed at fast-tracking young inventors into professional research labs. The program promised mentorship from top scientists, access to cutting-edge resources, and a chance to present at a global technology summit. It was everything Emma had dreamed of, yet everything felt overwhelming. The schedule was relentless: early mornings, late nights, endless meetings, and tight deadlines. Emma found herself slipping further from the carefree girl she used to be. The weight of expectations pressed down on her. Every prototype had to be flawless. Every presentation had to dazzle. Any mistake could shatter the fragile reputation she'd built. At first, Emma tried to keep up, fueled by passion and determination. But as weeks passed, exhaustion crept in. Sleepless nights blurred into stressful days, and moments of doubt gnawed at her confidence. The pressure seeped into her relationships. Max noticed the change, worried as Emma became distant, irritable, and withdrawn. Her mother watched helplessly as her daughter's bright spirit dimmed under the strain. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Emma sat alone in her room, tears streaming down her cheeks. She whispered to herself, "What if I'm not enough? What if I fail?" The question echoed in her mind, relentless and cruel. Emma realized she had been trying to be perfect, not just for others but for herself. The fear of failure had become a cage. Desperate for relief, she reached out to Jake, who was facing his own struggles. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he admitted feeling isolated and overwhelmed too. Together, they decided to step back from the pressure cooker environment, agreeing to focus on what truly mattered: learning, creating, and enjoying the journey. Emma took time to reconnect with Max and her mother, finding strength in their unconditional support. She rediscovered the joy of tinkering without deadlines, the thrill of discovery without applause. Slowly, the fog of anxiety lifted. Emma learned an invaluable lesson: success wasn't about perfection or endless hustle. It was about balance, resilience, and self-compassion. The breaking point had been painful, but it became a turning point, a moment that reshaped her understanding of what it meant to be a young innovator. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was learning to embrace imperfection and to believe that sometimes, stepping back is the bravest step forward. As Emma looked toward the future with renewed clarity, she knew the path wouldn't always be easy, but with heart and honesty, she could face whatever came next. After the emotional turmoil and exhaustion that nearly broke her, Emma Harper found herself at a crossroads. The crushing weight of expectations, the relentless race to prove herself, and the fear of failure had pushed her to the brink. But deep inside, a flicker of something stronger remained, a quiet determination that refused to be snuffed out. The turning point came unexpectedly, not in a boardroom or a lab, but during a simple walk through her hometown park, the same place where she had first dreamed of reaching the stars. Surrounded by familiar trees and the laughter of children playing, Emma realized how much she missed the freedom to imagine without pressure. She understood that if she wanted to keep moving forward, she needed to redefine what success meant for her, not as a race against others, but as a personal journey filled with meaning and joy. Inspired by this clarity, Emma made a bold decision. Instead of chasing every opportunity that came her way, she would focus on one mission close to her heart: developing a technology that could help communities like hers, where access to clean water and sustainable energy was still a daily challenge. This shift wasn't easy. Friends and mentors questioned her choice, urging her to aim higher or take the conventional path. But Emma trusted her instincts. She assembled a small team of passionate peers, including Max and some new friends from her recent experiences, and together they began working on an innovative, low-cost system combining solar energy and water purification. The project was deeply personal, rooted in Emma's experiences growing up and her desire to give back. With each prototype, setback, and success, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer trying to prove something to the world, she was building something that mattered. The local community embraced the initiative, offering support and feedback. Emma's mother watched with pride as her daughter blossomed, not just as a scientist, but as a leader who cared deeply about making a difference. Word spread, and soon the project caught the attention of nonprofit organizations and small investors eager to help scale the solution. Emma was invited to speak at local events, inspiring others with her story of resilience and vision. At a National Youth Innovation Conference, she shared her journey, the highs, the lows, and the turning point that changed everything. Her message resonated: true innovation comes from following your heart, embracing challenges, and never losing sight of why you started. For Emma, it was the courage to take control of her story and create a future where her dreams and her values aligned. As she looked out at the crowd, Emma knew the road ahead would still be filled with obstacles, but with clarity, passion, and the support of those she loved, she was ready to face whatever came next. Emma's decision to focus on creating a sustainable energy and water purification system was both daring and deeply personal. As she and her small team worked tirelessly in the modest garage-turned lab, they faced a host of technical and logistical challenges that threatened to derail their progress. The initial prototypes, while promising in theory, struggled to deliver consistent results under real-world conditions. Contaminated water sources varied widely, and environmental factors like weather and temperature fluctuations affected the solar panel's efficiency. Emma spent long nights recalibrating sensors, tweaking circuits, and poring over scientific papers, determined to make the system reliable and scalable. Meanwhile, funding was tight and pressure mounted to show tangible results. Community members who had initially supported the project grew impatient, and Emma felt the weight of their hopes and skepticism alike. One pivotal moment arrived when a test installation in a nearby rural town failed to meet expectations. The system's filters clogged faster than anticipated, and energy output dropped during an unexpected cold snap. News of the setback spread, fueling doubts among investors and the press. Emma could have retreated, but instead, she gathered her team and recommitted to solving the problems. They analyzed every failure, consulted experts, and tested alternative materials and designs. Slowly, breakthrough ideas emerged: a novel filter medium that resisted clogging, and a solar panel configuration optimized for variable climates. The team's perseverance paid off. A subsequent pilot installation ran smoothly for months, providing clean water and power to hundreds of residents. Word of the success traveled quickly, attracting new funding and partnerships with environmental organizations eager to scale the technology. Emma's invention was no longer just a dream, it was a tangible force for change. Yet, the breakthrough also brought new challenges: managing growth, navigating bureaucratic hurdles, and balancing innovation with sustainability. Emma learned the complexities of leadership, negotiation, and responsibility. Her relationship with Jake Mason also evolved. Though once rivals, they found ways to support each other's work and share insights, demonstrating that collaboration was the future of innovation. Reflecting on the journey, Emma understood that the path from idea to impact was rarely linear or easy. It demanded resilience, humility, and an unwavering commitment to purpose. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the belief that every setback was a setup for a comeback, and that real innovation meant learning from failure. As Emma prepared to present her technology on the global stage, she felt ready, not because she had all the answers, but because she was willing to face whatever came next with courage and hope. Emma's breakthrough with the solar-powered water purification system marked a turning point, propelling her from a local innovator to a figure of international interest. Invitations poured in, from conferences, media interviews, and partnership proposals, each opening new doors but also raising the stakes. With the global spotlight shining brighter than ever, Emma found herself navigating a complex maze of opportunities and obstacles. The success of her project attracted attention from large corporations eager to invest, but their offers came with strings attached: demands for rapid scaling, cost-cutting measures, and control over intellectual property. Emma faced a dilemma. On one hand, partnering with powerful entities could accelerate the technology's reach and help millions. On the other, she feared losing the core values that had driven her vision: sustainability, community involvement, and accessibility for underserved populations. Balancing growth with integrity became a daily struggle. Meanwhile, managing her expanding team required new skills. Emma had to learn delegation, conflict resolution, and strategic planning while still staying deeply involved in the technical work. She sometimes felt torn between being the visionary and the manager, between passion and pragmatism. The media portrayed her as a prodigy turned leader, but Emma felt the weight of expectations pressing down harder than ever. Behind closed doors, she grappled with self-doubt and exhaustion. At school, the pressure wasn't just professional. Emma's peers sometimes treated her differently, and some friendships faded under the strain of her hectic schedule. Max remained a steadfast anchor, offering quiet support and reminders to breathe and take breaks. One evening, after a tense negotiation with a potential investor, Emma sat alone in her room, overwhelmed by the complexity of her situation. She wondered if she could truly uphold her principles in a world driven by profit and competition. It was then that Rachel, her mother, shared a story from her own youth about perseverance, ethics, and the power of staying true to oneself. Emma took comfort in her mother's wisdom and resolved to forge her own path, one that blended innovation with compassion. To reinforce this commitment, Emma proposed a community advisory board to guide the project's direction, ensuring that the voices of those most affected were heard and respected. This move was met with praise but also resistance from some stakeholders. The tension underscored the challenges of blending grassroots values with large-scale ambitions. As Emma continued to advocate for balance and transparency, she realized leadership wasn't about controlling every outcome but about fostering trust, listening deeply, and adapting with humility. Her journey became a living example of how innovation is as much about character as it is about technology. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the courage to stand firm in her values, to lead with heart even when the path was uncertain. As the world watched her next moves closely, Emma knew the true test of success was not in accolades but in the positive change she could create. Emma's rising prominence brought not only admiration but also a spotlight that magnified every move she made. Suddenly, she wasn't just a young innovator in her hometown, she was a symbol of youth potential and change on the global stage. The accolades from conferences and media profiles were exhilarating, yet the glare of fame also exposed Emma to intense scrutiny from the public, critics, and even strangers online. At first, Emma reveled in the recognition. Interviews with major news outlets, appearances on talk shows, and invitations to speak at prestigious events validated years of hard work and sacrifice. Her social media following exploded, and messages of support flooded in from across the country. But with visibility came vulnerability. Negative comments and unfounded rumors began to surface. Some questioned her credibility, dismissing her achievements as luck or the result of adult help. Others accused her of being too young to understand the complexities of the problems she aimed to solve. The pressure to maintain a perfect image weighed heavily on Emma. She felt the sting of each criticism deeply, wondering if she could live up to the expectations placed upon her. The relentless pace left little time to reflect or recharge. At school, the attention created awkward dynamics. Friends treated her differently, some envied her success while others distanced themselves. Emma struggled to balance her public persona with her private self. The divide between who she was and who the world wanted her to be felt jarring. One evening, after a particularly harsh online backlash over a project delay, Emma found herself overwhelmed and isolated. She reached out to Max, who reminded her that the voice she needed to hear most was her own. Together, they talked through the challenges of fame, the importance of boundaries, and the need to focus on purpose rather than approval. Emma began to develop strategies to manage the spotlight without losing herself. She took breaks from social media, sought guidance from trusted mentors, and set clear priorities around her work and well-being. Her mother's unwavering support provided a grounding force during turbulent times. Slowly, Emma reclaimed her narrative, speaking openly about the pressures she faced and emphasizing the importance of resilience and authenticity. She used her platform not only to share her innovations but also to encourage others, especially young people, to pursue their passions despite obstacles and criticism. Through these experiences, Emma grew stronger, more self-aware, and better equipped to navigate the complexities of public life. She learned that fame was fleeting, but the impact she could make through her work and values was lasting. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was staying true to herself and remembering that her worth wasn't defined by others' opinions. As she prepared for her next big challenge, Emma embraced the reality of her journey, one filled with both light and shadows, but ultimately hers to own. Emma's journey of innovation and leadership had reached impressive heights, but just as the momentum seemed unstoppable, disaster struck. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Emma received the call that would change everything. The pilot installation of her solar-powered water purification system in a remote village had failed catastrophically. Heavy rains caused flooding, damaging the equipment and leaving the community without clean water or power. The news hit Emma like a punch to the gut. Months of hard work, careful planning, and hope had seemingly come undone overnight. She felt a crushing sense of responsibility. Not only as the project's creator but as someone who had promised real change to people depending on her technology. The media quickly caught wind of the failure, and headlines questioned the viability of her invention. Critics seized the moment to discredit her work, while supporters worried about the impact on the community she served. Emma found herself thrust into crisis mode, juggling calls from stakeholders, emergency meetings with her team, and heartfelt conversations with the village leaders affected by the setback. The pressure was immense. Emma struggled with self-doubt and guilt, haunted by questions of what went wrong and how she could have prevented the disaster. The setback exposed vulnerabilities in the system's design and the challenges of deploying technology in unpredictable environments. Instead of giving in to despair, Emma chose to face the crisis head-on. She mobilized her team to assess the damage, gather data, and develop immediate solutions to restore water and power. Collaborating closely with local residents, Emma prioritized transparency and community involvement, ensuring their voices guided the recovery process. Through this ordeal, Emma learned the critical importance of contingency planning, resilience, and humility in innovation. She embraced the idea that failure was not an endpoint but a necessary step toward improvement. The setback became a catalyst for deeper learning and growth, driving Emma to redesign the system with greater robustness and adaptability. While the road to recovery was long and fraught with challenges, Emma's commitment to her mission remained unshaken. She publicly acknowledged the failure, sharing lessons learned and reaffirming her dedication to serving communities in need. This openness earned respect and renewed support, reinforcing the trust essential for future success. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the courage to face failure honestly and the determination to build back stronger. As Emma stood amidst the recovery efforts, she understood that true innovation demanded not just genius but grit, and that every setback was an opportunity in disguise. The failure at the remote village had sent shockwaves through Emma's world. But in the aftermath of disaster, something unexpected began to emerge, a fierce determination not just to rebuild, but to transform. Emma knew that to restore faith, in her technology, her team, and herself, she needed to approach the challenge differently. The first step was listening. Emma traveled back to the village personally, accompanied by Max and a handful of trusted team members. The floodwaters had receded, but the damage was clear: broken solar panels scattered across fields, shattered water tanks, and, most importantly, families struggling without clean water. Emma didn't arrive as a distant expert, she arrived as a partner willing to hear their stories, frustrations, and hopes. Sitting around makeshift fires, she learned about the villagers' daily struggles, their resourcefulness, and their dreams for a better future. The humility of this experience reshaped Emma's perspective. She realized that innovation wasn't just about technology, it was about relationships, culture, and trust. Upon returning to her lab, Emma shared everything she'd heard with her team. They embarked on redesigning the system with these insights at the core. New materials were chosen to withstand harsh weather. Modules were made easier to repair using locally available parts. Most importantly, the community was integrated into the maintenance process, receiving training and support to foster ownership and sustainability. The process wasn't smooth. Budget constraints, supply chain delays, and technical setbacks challenged progress. But Emma's leadership, marked by patience, openness, and resilience, kept the team motivated. They celebrated small victories, a successful water filter test, a solar panel installation that survived a storm, a positive report from the village's community leaders. Alongside the technical work, Emma focused on healing fractured relationships. She maintained open communication with investors and partners, rebuilding trust through transparency. She reached out to critics not to argue but to invite collaboration and feedback. This approach earned her respect even from former skeptics. Personally, Emma grew stronger. The experience deepened her empathy and honed her problem-solving skills. She found balance through mindfulness practices introduced by Max, helping her manage stress and maintain clarity. Emma's mother remained a steadfast source of comfort, reminding her daughter that true success was measured not by accolades but by the lives touched. Months later, the rebuilt system was reinstalled in the village. The day the solar panels hummed to life and water flowed clean again was a moment of triumph not only for Emma but for everyone who had journeyed through hardship together. The villagers celebrated with songs and stories, their smiles lighting up the evening sky. Emma realized this wasn't just a project, it was a shared dream made real. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the power of resilience, knowing that setbacks are simply the groundwork for stronger foundations. As Emma looked toward the horizon, she understood that the true heart of innovation was not the technology itself, but the people it serves and the hope it inspires. After the successful restoration of the solar-powered water purification system in the village, Emma Harper's journey took an exciting and unexpected turn. The triumph was not just about the technology working again, it was about a vision expanding beyond the borders of her hometown and the immediate community she had served. Word of Emma's project spread rapidly through social media, news outlets, and word of mouth. Stories about the young innovator who had faced setbacks, learned from failure, and rebuilt a life-changing system inspired people nationwide. The ripple effect caught the attention of leaders in environmental organizations, philanthropic foundations, and even government agencies looking to tackle similar issues across rural America and beyond. One afternoon, Emma received an invitation that both surprised and thrilled her, a meeting with a coalition of nonprofit leaders who wanted to explore partnerships to scale her technology to other vulnerable communities. This was an opportunity Emma had dreamed about, but now faced the challenge of translating her grassroots project into a scalable, sustainable enterprise without losing its core values. As Emma prepared for the meeting, she reflected on how much she had grown since the early days of tinkering with circuits and dreaming in her garage. The journey had taught her that innovation was never just about invention, it was about building relationships, navigating complexity, and maintaining integrity in the face of pressure. At the coalition meeting, Emma presented the technology alongside stories from the village, emphasizing the importance of community involvement and sustainability. Her authenticity and passion resonated deeply with the group. Several nonprofits expressed eagerness to collaborate, offering resources, expertise, and local networks to facilitate deployment in new areas. The discussion also highlighted challenges, funding constraints, logistical hurdles, and cultural differences across regions. Emma realized that scaling required not only technical solutions but also adaptable strategies that respected local contexts. During the meeting, Emma also met Dr. Marcus Reynolds, an environmental scientist with decades of experience in renewable energy and water systems. Dr. Reynolds was impressed by Emma's practical approach and eagerness to learn. He offered to mentor her and assist with navigating regulatory processes and scientific validation. This unexpected alliance brought a new depth of knowledge and credibility to Emma's efforts. Back at her lab, Emma integrated the coalition's feedback into a refined strategic plan. She expanded her team to include specialists in community engagement, logistics, and policy. Emma balanced her role as inventor with that of a leader, nurturing a culture of collaboration, innovation, and ethical responsibility. The transition wasn't easy. She faced moments of doubt about losing touch with the hands-on work she loved, but she reminded herself that her impact now required a broader vision and different skills. Max continued to be Emma's grounding presence, encouraging her to prioritize self-care and celebrate small wins. Emma's mother also shared in the excitement, proud to see her daughter blossom into a young leader with a global vision. Emma remained committed to the community-first approach, ensuring that new deployments always included training and partnership with local residents. As new pilot projects launched in several rural towns, Emma witnessed diverse challenges and successes. Some communities adapted quickly, embracing the technology and integrating it into daily life. Others faced obstacles related to infrastructure, cultural acceptance, or funding gaps. Each experience deepened Emma's understanding and reinforced the importance of flexibility and humility. Throughout this expansion, Emma's story inspired others. Schools incorporated her journey into STEM curricula, youth organizations invited her to speak, and aspiring innovators found in her a role model who embodied resilience, empathy, and purpose. Emma used her growing platform not just to promote her technology but to advocate for environmental justice and youth empowerment. As Emma looked toward the future, she knew the road ahead was filled with uncertainty and challenge. But with her team, mentors, and communities by her side, she was ready to turn that uncertainty into opportunity and hope. The journey that started in a small garage had blossomed into a movement, proving that with vision, resilience, and connection, even the smallest spark can ignite profound change. Emma Harper's expanding vision brought remarkable progress but also unexpected resistance. As her solar-powered water purification systems began rolling out across various rural communities, she encountered pushback from powerful interests threatened by change. While many embraced her innovation's promise to provide clean water and sustainable energy, others viewed it as a challenge to established industries and local power dynamics. One of the earliest signs of opposition came from a regional utility company, EnergyCorp, which dominated the power supply in several counties. EnergyCorp saw Emma's decentralized solar systems as a threat to their profits and control over energy distribution. Representatives from the company began lobbying local officials to impose restrictive regulations and increased permitting fees on Emma's projects, arguing that her systems posed safety risks and interfered with grid management. Emma and her team were taken aback by this pushback. The regulatory hurdles slowed down installations and created friction with community leaders caught between supporting innovation and maintaining economic ties to EnergyCorp. Beyond regulatory resistance, Emma faced skepticism and misinformation campaigns aimed at discrediting her technology. Rumors spread online and in local meetings that her water purification system was ineffective or unsafe. Some community members who initially welcomed the project became hesitant or fearful, influenced by these narratives. Emma responded by doubling down on transparency and education. She organized public forums, demonstrations, and open house events to explain how the technology worked and address concerns directly. She invited independent experts, including Dr. Marcus Reynolds, to validate the system's safety and efficacy. Slowly, trust began to rebuild in many communities, but the battle was exhausting and at times disheartening. Internally, the pressure also tested Emma's leadership and resilience. Funders questioned the increasing costs and delays caused by regulatory battles. Her team faced burnout as they juggled technical work with advocacy and community engagement. Emma herself struggled to maintain optimism, feeling the weight of responsibility not only to her technology but to the people depending on it. At school, rumors about the opposition and her projects fueled gossip and alienation. Yet, Emma refused to retreat. She reminded herself of the original purpose, bringing clean water and power to those who needed it most. Drawing strength from Max's steady support and her mother's unwavering belief in her, Emma crafted a multi-pronged strategy to overcome the challenges. She built alliances with environmental organizations, consumer rights groups, and local politicians who championed renewable energy and rural development. These allies helped amplify her message and apply pressure on regulators to streamline approvals and protect innovation. Emma also embraced storytelling as a tool to combat misinformation. She shared heartfelt stories from families whose lives had improved thanks to the system, highlighting tangible benefits rather than abstract claims. Social media campaigns showcased these voices, connecting with broader audiences and countering negative narratives. The opposition sharpened Emma's resolve and honed her skills as an advocate and communicator. She learned to navigate complex political landscapes, build coalitions, and balance idealism with pragmatism. Through these trials, Emma's vision grew stronger and more inclusive, recognizing that progress often comes with resistance but that persistence and integrity can prevail. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the conviction that meaningful change is rarely easy, but worth fighting for. As Emma prepared for the next phase of her journey, she knew that opposition was not a roadblock but a sign that she was making an impact, and that she was ready to meet the challenge head-on. Emma's battle against growing opposition was wearing her down, but just when it felt like the weight was too heavy to bear, an unexpected mentor entered her life and shifted the course of her journey. It happened on a chilly autumn afternoon during a technology summit in San Francisco. Emma had been invited to speak about her project's impact, though the mounting stress had dulled her usual enthusiasm. After her presentation, while mingling with other attendees, she met Olivia Grant, a retired engineer and former executive at one of the largest renewable energy companies in the country. Olivia had a reputation for guiding young innovators and turning fledgling ideas into sustainable enterprises. From their first conversation, Olivia's warmth and wisdom stood out. She listened intently as Emma shared the highs and lows of her journey, the successes, the failures, and the fierce opposition she was facing. Olivia didn't offer quick fixes but instead asked thoughtful questions that challenged Emma to clarify her vision, values, and long-term goals. Over the next few months, Olivia became a steady presence in Emma's life. They met regularly, sometimes in person, other times over video calls, to strategize about leadership, navigating politics, and sustaining innovation. Olivia shared stories from her own career, including moments of failure, reinvention, and triumph. One of Olivia's most important lessons was about balance, between pushing hard for progress and knowing when to pause and regroup. She emphasized the importance of self-care and building a support network, reminding Emma that even the brightest innovators are human. With Olivia's mentorship, Emma gained new tools for managing stress, communicating more effectively, and leading with both strength and empathy. Olivia introduced Emma to a network of seasoned professionals and advocates who could support her cause, helping to open doors previously closed to a young newcomer. This mentorship also encouraged Emma to think bigger, beyond immediate battles, to a sustainable future where her technology could thrive in harmony with communities, ecosystems, and economies. Inspired by Olivia's guidance, Emma revisited her strategic plan. She prioritized investments in capacity building within communities, ensuring that the technology empowered local leadership rather than creating dependency. She also championed environmental stewardship, incorporating feedback from ecological experts to minimize the system's footprint. At a personal level, Emma began setting boundaries to protect her mental and emotional well-being. She scheduled regular breaks, pursued hobbies she'd set aside, and leaned more openly on friends and family. This shift wasn't always easy, especially in a world that often equates busyness with success, but Emma felt more grounded and resilient. The relationship with Olivia illuminated the power of intergenerational collaboration, how wisdom and fresh perspective together can fuel innovation and impact. Emma's story, once defined by solo struggle, was now enriched by shared experience and mutual growth. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the unexpected gift of mentorship, reminding her that no matter the challenge, guidance and connection can light the way. As Emma prepared to face the next wave of challenges, she did so with renewed clarity, strength, and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. Emma Harper's journey had been marked by perseverance, setbacks, and growth, but nothing prepared her for the breakthrough moment that would redefine everything. After months of refining her solar-powered water purification system, navigating opposition, and building a supportive network, the pieces finally aligned. It began with a chance encounter at an international sustainability conference in New York City. Emma was attending as a guest speaker, sharing her story with an audience that included policymakers, investors, and thought leaders. Among them was Dr. Sophia Lee, director of a global environmental initiative focused on clean water access in developing regions. Dr. Lee was captivated not only by Emma's technology but by the deep community engagement embedded in her approach. The two connected over coffee, discussing possibilities for scaling the system internationally. Dr. Lee's initiative had secured significant funding and sought innovative solutions that were both effective and culturally adaptable. Emma saw an opportunity to expand her impact far beyond rural America, to remote villages in Africa, Asia, and South America where access to clean water was a daily struggle. Back home, Emma and her team sprang into action. They collaborated with Dr. Lee's organization to adapt the system to varied climates, water sources, and social contexts. The work required extensive research, prototyping, and field testing. Emma traveled abroad for the first time, immersing herself in communities facing harsh conditions she had only read about. These experiences deepened her understanding of the global water crisis and the urgent need for scalable, sustainable solutions. The challenges were immense: logistical complexities, cultural differences, political instability, and resource limitations tested Emma's resolve and adaptability. Yet, each obstacle reinforced the importance of listening, learning, and collaborating with local partners. Emma's leadership evolved as she balanced the urgency of the mission with respect for diverse voices and traditions. News of the international pilot projects attracted media attention and broad support. Emma's story transformed from that of a local prodigy to a global changemaker. She was invited to address the United Nations, contribute to policy discussions, and join international panels on innovation and sustainability. Yet, despite the growing spotlight, Emma remained grounded in the core values that had guided her from the beginning: empathy, resilience, and community empowerment. She knew that technology alone couldn't solve systemic problems, but when combined with human connection and respect, it could light a path forward. The breakthrough wasn't just technological, it was a transformation in scale, scope, and vision. Emma's journey from a curious 10-year-old tinkering in a garage to a global leader showcased the power of persistence, learning, and heart. This story might just spark a new beginning. For Emma, it was the belief that innovation fueled by compassion could change the world, one community at a time. As Emma stood before a crowd at the United Nations, she realized that her journey was far from over but filled with endless possibility, driven by the hope that every challenge held the seed of a breakthrough. Emma Harper stood on the stage of a packed auditorium, the glow of cameras and bright lights reflecting off the sea of faces before her. Years had passed since that curious 10-year-old first dared to dream big in her small hometown, and now she was sharing her story with an international audience eager to learn from her experiences. The journey had been anything but straightforward, a roller coaster of triumphs, failures, setbacks, and breakthroughs. But Emma's message was clear: true innovation comes not just from technology or intelligence but from empathy, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to serve others. As Emma spoke, she reflected on the lessons that had shaped her path. She remembered the early days when a solar panel was just a puzzle to solve, and failure felt like the end of the world. She recalled the moment her invention faltered in the village and the profound humility she felt listening to the community's voices, realizing that their needs and wisdom were the true compass guiding her work. Emma's story was also one of transformation. Of growing from a solitary tinkerer into a leader who built teams, embraced mentorship, navigated opposition, and forged alliances across cultures and continents. The setbacks were painful but necessary, teaching her that resilience meant adapting, learning, and moving forward with hope rather than despair. She recounted the power of connection, the friend who believed in her, the mentor who guided her, the communities who welcomed her innovations with open arms and honest critique. Innovation, she emphasized, was a collective journey, not a solo race. The legacy Emma hoped to leave was not just a series of inventions but a blueprint for how young innovators could approach challenges with heart and courage. She urged the next generation to embrace failure as a teacher, to listen deeply to those they seek to help, and to pursue their dreams with passion tempered by humility. After the speech, Emma mingled with attendees, students, policymakers, entrepreneurs, each inspired by her story and eager to apply its lessons in their own lives and work. Her influence extended beyond the technology she created. It was in the spark she ignited in others to dream bigger and serve better. Returning home, Emma found comfort in the simple routines that grounded her: evenings with her mother, conversations with Max, and quiet moments in her workshop where the first solar panel still hung on the wall, a reminder of where it all began. She continued to innovate, now focusing on educational programs that empowered young people to become inventors and changemakers, ensuring her journey would inspire countless others. Emma's story ended not with a final achievement but with an open door, a call to action that the future belonged to those who dared to imagine and who fought to bring those imaginations to life with love and resilience. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the belief that every challenge carried the possibility of growth, every failure the seed of success, and that love, whether for family, community, or a greater cause, was the true engine driving progress. As the lights dimmed and applause filled the room, Emma Harper knew her journey was just one story among many, but one she hoped would inspire others to write their own. Emma Harper's story had already become a beacon for innovators, dreamers, and changemakers across the globe, yet she knew deep inside that her journey was far from over. The spotlight she'd earned was not an endpoint, but a new beginning, a launch pad for an even bigger vision that would take her beyond the borders of technology, community, and even environmental sustainability. It was a vision fueled by a question that had increasingly occupied her mind: how could she leverage everything she'd learned to not only change lives but transform systems? The answer, she realized, lay in education and empowerment on a global scale. The moment she returned home after speaking at international forums, Emma began laying the groundwork for a new initiative she called the Horizon Project. The mission was simple yet profound: to create an accessible, inclusive platform that equips young people worldwide with the tools, knowledge, and inspiration to become innovators and leaders in their own right. Emma's vision was born from her own experiences, of feeling isolated as a young inventor, struggling to find mentorship, and battling doubt. She wanted to ensure that no aspiring changemaker would ever feel alone or unsupported in their journey. Launching the Horizon Project wasn't easy. Emma was no stranger to challenges, but this initiative demanded a different kind of resilience. It involved building a coalition of educators, technologists, philanthropists, and community leaders who shared her passion for youth empowerment. She reached out to schools, nonprofit organizations, and corporations, asking for their partnership to develop curriculum, mentorship programs, and hands-on workshops that could be delivered both in person and online. One of Emma's first steps was assembling a diverse advisory board. She intentionally sought out voices from different continents, cultures, and backgrounds, people who could provide insights to ensure the program was relevant and respectful across contexts. This collaborative approach became the cornerstone of Horizon's philosophy: innovation thrives not in isolation, but through community and diversity. Emma also harnessed technology in creative ways. She helped develop an interactive app that allowed students to access resources, connect with mentors, and collaborate on projects no matter where they lived. The platform featured virtual labs where young inventors could experiment with coding, robotics, renewable energy concepts, and more. It also included storytelling modules, encouraging students to share their challenges and triumphs, creating a global narrative of hope and possibility. Behind the scenes, Emma faced the familiar pressures of fundraising, logistics, and scaling, but this time she was fortified by lessons learned over years of hard-won experience. Olivia Grant, her mentor, remained an invaluable sounding board, helping Emma balance ambition with practical strategy. Max, too, continued to offer unwavering emotional support, reminding Emma to celebrate each milestone, no matter how small. The Horizon Project launched with pilot programs in a handful of countries, including the United States, Kenya, India, and Brazil. Early feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Students spoke of feeling inspired for the first time, mentors found fulfillment in guiding fresh talent, and educators appreciated the adaptable curriculum that complemented local needs. In Nairobi, Emma met Amina, a 14-year-old girl from a disadvantaged neighborhood who had dreamed of becoming an engineer but lacked resources. Through Horizon, Amina accessed robotics kits and mentorship from women engineers worldwide. Her eyes sparkled as she described building her first robot, a moment Emma recognized from her own childhood. Stories like Amina's underscored the project's transformative potential and fueled Emma's determination. Emma's public profile continued to grow, but she guarded her time carefully, mindful of the importance of staying grounded. She dedicated part of each day to personal reflection, journaling about the challenges, breakthroughs, and lessons the project uncovered. She often reminded herself and others that progress wasn't linear and that setbacks were invitations to learn and adapt. The media dubbed Emma the Future Builder, a title she accepted with humility. Her focus remained steadfastly on the people. The young minds awakening to their own power and potential. She frequently said, "I'm not the hero of this story. The real heroes are the kids who dare to dream big, who refuse to be defined by their circumstances." One of the Horizon Project's greatest achievements came during a global virtual summit where students from 50 countries presented innovations addressing local challenges, from clean energy solutions to water purification, waste management, and educational tools. The event demonstrated the power of a connected world, where ideas crossed borders and inspired collective action. Emma's leadership evolved alongside the project. She learned to delegate effectively, nurture emerging leaders within the organization, and embrace a more holistic vision that integrated social justice, environmental stewardship, and technological innovation. Horizon's mission expanded to include advocacy for equitable access to technology and education, recognizing that systemic barriers needed dismantling for true change. Reflecting on the arc of her journey, Emma understood that her story was not unique but emblematic of a new generation rising with courage and creativity. She saw her work as a chapter in a larger narrative of human progress, one where technology, empathy, and collaboration intersect to build a better world. One quiet evening, as Emma sat in her workshop surrounded by prototypes and letters from students, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment mingled with excitement for what lay ahead. The road was long, the challenges many, but the horizon was limitless. She knew that the true legacy she could leave wasn't just in inventions or accolades, but in the spark she ignited in others, the belief that every individual, no matter their age or origin, has the power to shape the future. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the conviction that the greatest innovations come not from a single mind but from a world united in curiosity, compassion, and courage. As the sun set beyond the horizon, Emma Harper looked toward tomorrow with hope, knowing that together, we could build a future brighter than any one of us could imagine alone. Emma Harper had always believed that small actions could create monumental change. What began as a simple idea in her garage when she was just 10 years old had grown into a global initiative inspiring thousands. But as Horizon Project flourished, Emma realized her impact was no longer just about technology or education. It was about the ripple effect of one spark touching countless lives, shifting mindsets, and transforming communities. The true power of innovation, she discovered, wasn't simply in the tools she built but in the inspiration she sparked. It all started with a letter. One evening, after a long day of meetings and mentoring sessions, Emma sat down to read messages from the Horizon community. Among hundreds of emails and social media posts, one caught her attention. It was from a young woman named Sophia, writing from a rural village in Guatemala. Sophia described how Horizon's workshops had ignited her passion for sustainable farming technologies. She shared how, inspired by Emma's story, she and her friends had started a local cooperative using simple irrigation systems powered by solar energy. This small community project was not only improving food security but also empowering women to lead and innovate. Emma felt a surge of emotion reading Sophia's words. It was proof that the spark of an idea could travel far beyond what she had ever imagined. She responded immediately, encouraging Sophia to keep pushing forward and promising to feature her story in the upcoming Horizon newsletter. This exchange marked a turning point for Emma, the realization that the movement she helped build was no longer contained within her projects or even her direct efforts. It was growing organically, carried by the passion and creativity of countless individuals worldwide. The ripple effect manifested in many unexpected ways. Horizon alumni formed local chapters in their cities and villages, organizing hackathons, community cleanups, and innovation fairs. Students who once lacked confidence stepped into leadership roles, mentoring younger peers and advocating for change. Emma watched proudly as these grassroots efforts blossomed, knowing that real, lasting impact came from empowering people to become architects of their own futures. Recognizing the movement's growing momentum, Emma and her team shifted focus from scaling programs to nurturing networks. They developed tools to help local leaders build sustainable initiatives tailored to their unique contexts. Horizon's app evolved to include community forums, resource sharing, and virtual mentorship circles that transcended geography and language barriers. Technology became a bridge, not a barrier. Yet with growth came complexity. Managing a global network meant navigating cultural differences, political landscapes, and sometimes resistance. Emma learned to listen deeply, to understand diverse perspectives and build trust. She prioritized inclusivity, ensuring that voices from marginalized communities were not just heard but amplified. This approach enriched Horizon's mission and reinforced Emma's belief that true innovation must be grounded in empathy and equity. Amid the challenges, Emma found inspiration in stories like that of Jamal, a teenager in Detroit who had used Horizon's robotics kits to design an affordable assistive device for his neighbor with limited mobility. Jamal's project won regional awards and sparked conversations about accessibility and community support. Emma invited Jamal to speak at a conference, where his heartfelt words moved audiences and reminded everyone of the human impact behind every invention. Emma's journey had transformed her from a young inventor seeking solutions to a visionary leader fostering a movement. She began collaborating with governments, international organizations, and private sector partners to advocate for policies that supported youth innovation, education equity, and sustainable development. Her voice carried weight not because of fame but because it was rooted in genuine experience and a proven track record. Through it all, Emma remained grounded by the relationships that had sustained her. Max, now a trusted advisor and lifelong friend, continued to provide unwavering support. Olivia's mentorship evolved into partnership, with both women championing each other's endeavors. Emma's mother's quiet wisdom reminded her to cherish moments of rest and gratitude. One afternoon, Emma visited a community center in a small town where Horizon alumni gathered. She watched as young people shared projects, debated ideas, and celebrated successes. A young girl named Mia approached Emma, shy but determined, holding a notebook filled with sketches of a solar-powered school desk. "I want to make learning easier for kids like me," Mia said simply. Emma smiled, seeing herself reflected in that hopeful gaze. "You already are," she told Mia. "And I can't wait to see what you create." The ripple effect of Emma's work was no longer a metaphor, it was a living, breathing force reshaping lives and futures. Her story, once a solitary spark, had become a wildfire of hope, innovation, and collective action. Emma understood that the journey ahead would continue to be challenging, filled with new obstacles and learning curves. But she also knew that the movement was bigger than any one person. Emma often returned to a favorite saying she'd heard from Olivia: "Change isn't about who moves fastest or makes the loudest noise. It's about who keeps the fire burning through the darkest nights." Emma embodied that fire, steady, warm, and bright enough to light the way for others. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma Harper looked out at the vast sky filled with stars, each a possibility, a dream, a spark waiting to ignite. And she knew that together, we were only just beginning to light up the darkness. Emma Harper had always been driven by a fierce determination and an unshakable belief in the power of innovation to change the world. From a 10-year-old tinkering with solar panels in her garage to leading a global movement empowering young innovators, she seemed unstoppable. But beneath the surface of her success, a quieter, more personal struggle was unfolding, a challenge not of technology or logistics, but of self-doubt and the pressure of expectations. It was easy for people to see Emma as a role model, a beacon of hope and achievement. Invitations to speak, accolades, and media appearances poured in. She was the face of the Horizon Project, a movement that inspired thousands. Yet behind the scenes, Emma wrestled with the weight of responsibility and the fear of falling short. One evening, after a long day of meetings and public engagements, Emma sat alone in her workshop, the hum of machines and soft glow of prototype screens surrounding her. Despite the apparent calm, a storm churned inside. She questioned if she was truly making a difference or merely caught in a cycle of expectations. The pressure to be perfect, to always innovate, to be the voice for millions, was exhausting. Emma's friends noticed subtle changes, moments of withdrawal, restless nights, and occasional bursts of frustration. Max, ever her anchor, gently encouraged her to open up. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said one night as they walked through the quiet streets. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed. You're human, Emma." Those words were both a relief and a challenge. Emma realized she had been so focused on leading others that she neglected her own well-being. She began seeking support, reaching out to a counselor who specialized in high achievers and burnout. Therapy sessions became a safe space to explore fears, doubts, and the complex emotions entwined with success. Through this process, Emma learned the importance of balance, not just in work and rest, but in expectations and compassion for herself. She discovered that vulnerability was not weakness but a source of strength, enabling deeper connections and resilience. Simultaneously, the Horizon Project was evolving. Emma entrusted more responsibilities to her leadership team, empowering them to take initiative and bring fresh perspectives. This delegation allowed her space to focus on strategic vision and personal growth. Emma also embraced mindfulness practices, meditation, journaling, and nature walks, helping her stay present and grounded amid the whirlwind. These habits nurtured clarity and renewed energy, essential for sustainable leadership. At the same time, Emma confronted imposter syndrome head-on. Despite her accomplishments, she often felt like a fraud, fearing exposure as someone not truly qualified. She realized many leaders shared this experience but rarely spoke openly about it. Inspired, Emma initiated a campaign within Horizon to promote mental health awareness and normalize conversations about vulnerability among young innovators. This openness transformed the organizational culture, fostering empathy, support, and authenticity. Students and mentors alike shared stories of struggle and triumph, building a community where success included embracing imperfection. Emma's journey through self-doubt was not linear. There were setbacks, moments when anxiety flared or motivation waned. Yet each challenge became an opportunity to practice resilience and self-compassion. One pivotal moment came during a major international conference where Emma was scheduled to deliver the keynote address. Days before, she grappled with intense anxiety and questioned whether she could meet expectations. Max and Olivia helped her prepare, reminding her that authenticity mattered more than perfection. Standing on the stage, Emma chose to share not just her successes but her struggles. She spoke candidly about the pressure to be superhuman and the importance of embracing vulnerability. The audience responded with overwhelming support, many expressing relief at hearing a leader's honest voice. This speech marked a turning point. Emma's message expanded beyond innovation to include mental wellness and the human experience behind leadership. Her authenticity deepened her impact and inspired countless others to seek help and foster supportive environments. In private moments, Emma reflected on the paradox of her journey, that strength and vulnerability coexisted, that leadership was not about having all the answers but about learning, growing, and connecting. She understood now that the greatest innovation was not technological but personal, the ability to be true to oneself while uplifting others. As Emma prepared for the next phase of her life and work, she carried these lessons close. She committed to leading with heart, embracing imperfection, and nurturing a community where every voice mattered, including her own. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Emma, it was the courage to face her own fears, the grace to ask for help, and the wisdom to know that true leadership grows from both strength and vulnerability. As the workshop lights dimmed and Emma closed her journal, she smiled, ready to continue the journey. Not just as an innovator or leader, but as a whole, imperfect human being inspiring others to do the same. Emma Harper had always thrived on challenges, the kind that pushed her beyond comfort zones and forced her to grow. Yet as she stood on the cusp of a new chapter in her life, she found herself facing a frontier unlike any before, a space that wasn't defined by inventions, programs, or accolades, but by trust, partnership, and the unknown. The opportunity had come unexpectedly. One afternoon, Emma received an invitation from the leadership of a cutting-edge space exploration company, a company that, like her, was committed to pushing humanity's boundaries. They wanted Emma to join their advisory board and lead a new initiative focused on education and innovation in space technology. It was an honor, but it was also daunting. Space was an arena far beyond her previous work, filled with experts whose knowledge dwarfed hers, and challenges that felt cosmic in scale. After several sleepless nights, Emma accepted. She knew that to truly innovate, she had to embrace learning as a lifelong journey. This new role was a chance to blend her passion for education with the awe-inspiring possibilities of space exploration, to inspire a new generation to look up at the stars and dream bigger than ever before. From the moment she stepped into the company's sleek headquarters, Emma felt the thrill of being on the edge of discovery. The walls were adorned with images of rockets, satellites, and astronauts, symbols of human curiosity and courage. She met engineers, scientists, and visionaries who welcomed her with a mix of respect and skepticism. Emma was aware of the unspoken question: could this young innovator truly add value in such a specialized field? Determined to prove herself, Emma dove headfirst into learning. She immersed herself in technical briefings, devoured research papers, and asked endless questions. At times, the jargon and complexity overwhelmed her, but her persistence paid off. She began to understand the nuances of propulsion systems, orbital mechanics, and the challenges of sustainable life support in space. More importantly, she saw how her expertise in education and community building could bridge gaps between scientists and the public, making space exploration accessible and inspiring. Emma's vision for the new initiative was bold: to create a global space innovation academy that combined hands-on learning, mentorship, and cutting-edge technology to empower young people everywhere to contribute to humanity's journey beyond Earth. This academy would leverage virtual reality, remote labs, and international partnerships to dismantle barriers of geography, language, and socio-economic status. Pitching this vision to the board was nerve-wracking. Emma knew she was asking for resources, commitment, and a shift in thinking. But her passion was contagious. She shared stories of Horizon Project students whose ingenuity and drive transcended circumstances, and she painted a vivid picture of a future where space exploration was a collective human endeavor, powered by diverse voices and talents. The board approved the initiative, and Emma was appointed as its director. The work ahead was monumental: designing curriculum, building technology platforms, recruiting mentors, and forging alliances with schools and organizations worldwide. Emma rallied her team, blending scientists, educators, and tech experts into a collaborative force fueled by curiosity and shared purpose. Launching the academy revealed new challenges. The technology required to simulate space environments was complex and costly. Accessing remote communities demanded creative solutions and partnerships. Cultural differences necessitated adaptive approaches to teaching and communication. Yet with each obstacle, Emma and her team innovated, iterated, and persisted. One memorable moment came during a pilot virtual mission simulation involving students from 5 continents. Emma watched as teenagers controlled robotic arms on a satellite in real time, their faces alight with wonder and determination. The simulation sparked a global conversation about the possibilities of youth-led innovation in space technology. Emma also prioritized inclusivity, ensuring that underrepresented groups, especially young women and minorities, had opportunities to participate and lead. She believed that diversity was essential not only for fairness but for the richness of ideas and solutions necessary to tackle the unknown. As the Space Innovation Academy grew, Emma balanced her new role with the demands of the Horizon project and her personal life. Time management became a skill of survival, and self-care a non-negotiable practice. Max's steady support was invaluable, reminding her to celebrate progress and find joy amid the grind. Emma's public profile expanded again, but her message remained consistent: innovation is a collective journey that starts with curiosity and is sustained by community, empathy, and resilience. Whether on Earth or in space, the human spirit's capacity to imagine and create was limitless. In quiet moments, Emma reflected on how far she had come. The girl who once felt alone with her ideas had become a leader inspiring a global movement and now stepping into the vast unknown of space education. The leap was terrifying and exhilarating, filled with uncertainty and promise. Emma understood that embracing the unknown was at the heart of innovation. It meant being willing to fail, to learn, and to keep moving forward with hope and determination. It meant trusting herself and others to build the future together. What's one dream that feels out of reach but pushes you to keep trying? For Emma, it was the belief that the next frontier is not just about reaching new planets but about expanding human potential in ways we can only begin to imagine. As night fell and the stars emerged, Emma Harper looked up at the sky with a heart full of wonder, ready to lead others beyond the horizon and into the limitless possibilities of the universe. Emma Harper sat quietly in her office, the evening light filtering through the large windows and casting a warm glow over the walls filled with photographs, awards, and mementos from her journey. It had been years since she first outsmarted Elon Musk as a precocious 10-year-old with big dreams, and yet, the fire that fueled her ambition burned just as brightly. Now, as a visionary leader and mentor to a new generation, Emma's thoughts turned inward, contemplating the legacy she wanted to leave behind. Legacy. It was a word that carried both weight and inspiration. For Emma, legacy wasn't about fame or fortune but about impact: the lives touched, the barriers broken, and the seeds planted for a future she might never see but deeply believed in. Her mind wandered back to the countless young innovators she had met through the Horizon Project and the Space Innovation Academy. Teens from cities, villages, and remote corners of the world who, with limited resources but unlimited curiosity, were changing their communities. Emma saw herself in each of them: the hunger to learn, the courage to fail, and the relentless hope to create something meaningful. She realized that her greatest achievement wasn't a single invention or project but the ecosystem of empowerment she had helped build. An ecosystem where knowledge was shared freely, diversity was celebrated, and every young mind was nurtured to thrive. This understanding shaped Emma's latest initiative, the Tomorrow Collective, a global network designed to connect innovators, educators, and leaders from all walks of life. The goal was to break down silos, foster collaboration, and accelerate solutions to the world's most pressing challenges, from climate change to equitable education and beyond. Launching the Tomorrow Collective required Emma to harness all her skills, from strategic planning and fundraising to storytelling and diplomacy. She traveled extensively, meeting with government officials, philanthropists, and grassroots organizers, weaving a tapestry of partnerships grounded in trust and shared vision. Each meeting reaffirmed Emma's belief in the power of collective action. She heard stories of resilience and creativity that rivaled her own journey, and she knew that the future depended on amplifying these voices, not just her own. The collective's early projects ranged from clean energy startups led by indigenous youth in Canada to digital literacy campaigns in Southeast Asia. Emma's team prioritized sustainability and inclusivity, recognizing that true progress meant leaving no one behind. One of the most touching moments came during a visit to a coastal village devastated by rising sea levels. Emma met a group of teenagers developing innovative flood barriers using local materials and traditional knowledge. Their determination and ingenuity moved her deeply. She promised to bring their story to the world, a testament to the fusion of heritage and innovation. Emma also remained committed to personal growth. She embraced mentorship, both as a mentor and mentee, knowing that leadership was a continuous exchange of wisdom and support. Olivia's guidance continued to shape her perspective, and new friendships introduced fresh ideas and challenges. Balancing such a vast network was not without difficulty. Emma faced moments of doubt, conflict, and fatigue. But each obstacle was a reminder of the stakes, the millions of young people depending on her vision and the global community counting on collective innovation. Emma's message grew clearer: legacy isn't a final destination but a living process. It's found in the daily acts of courage, kindness, and persistence that ripple outward in ways we can't always predict. At a global summit, Emma delivered a keynote that captured this philosophy. She spoke not as a solitary genius but as a facilitator of collective dreams. Our greatest inventions, she said, are the connections we forge and the communities we build. Legacy is the light we pass forward, not a trophy we hold. The audience rose in a standing ovation, but Emma's true reward was the stories shared afterward: young leaders inspired, partnerships formed, and a renewed sense of hope ignited. Back in her office, Emma reflected on the journey, from a curious girl in her garage to a catalyst for global change. She smiled, knowing that the future was bright because it belonged to those willing to dream, to dare, and to collaborate. This story might just spark a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one way you want to leave a legacy for tomorrow? For Emma, it was the unwavering belief that together, we can create a world where every young person's potential shines. As night deepened and stars filled the sky, Emma Harper looked toward the horizon, not with uncertainty, but with hope, ready to nurture the legacy in the making and inspire generations to come. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?